Costco recently announced that they have sold $100 million worth of gold bars and gold coins through their physical stores and through Costco online. And now they have announced that they are offering beautiful 1-ounce silver coins called American Silver Eagles as an additional item that people can purchase in the world of precious metals. This is a really exciting development because it's bringing so many people who are maybe unfamiliar with precious metals into our world of precious metals. But there are pitfalls attached with all of these items, and one of the major ones is the fact that Costco will not buy your precious metals back from you, and they don't accept returns on these items. And that's because gold and silver are globally traded commodities where the price can fluctuate dramatically from moment to moment, from day to day, from week to week. So, what happens if you decide that a time has come for you to sell these items that you've purchased through Costco or any other retailer? That's the question we're going to try to answer today in this video. If you are new to the channel, my name is White Cross. You can call me Dubsy. You can call me White. I answer to pretty much anything. And if you are new to the channel, I would like to offer you the opportunity to subscribe to this channel, become part of this community, whether you are an advanced stacker of precious metals or this is your first dipping your toe into the world of precious metals. We've got some fantastic videos and content out here, and I would love to have you be part of this community. I also like to begin each of my videos with a simple disclaimer, and that disclaimer is that I am not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to give you any kind of financial advice. I'm simply trying to share some of my experience having bought and sold precious metals and rare coins for the last 30 or 40 years. And I also like to begin each of my videos with a concept or two that we can work back into the subject matter. So before we get into the meat of what this video is about, that is, when it comes time for you to sell, how do you sell these items? The concept I wanted to offer to you is the concept of premiums. Premium is simply the amount of money that you must pay over and above the value of the gold or silver or platinum when you purchase that item. And the premium usually amounts to a few percentage points or a few dollars, depending on what vehicle it is that you've bought. And that premium goes to pay the profit of the person that's selling. Also, it pays for the distribution, for the shipping, for the handling. It pays for the employees. It keeps the lights on. Premium is the amount over and above the value of the silver or the gold. And with the examples that we've used in the past in the gold Costco video or the silver Costco video, and I'll put links to those down below, we've talked about kind of a theoretical price. And that theoretical price, because the price of gold and silver does fluctuate so rapidly from moment to moment, week to week, month to month, around the world 24 hours a day, I like to use an illustrative amount of $2,000 for an ounce of gold or about $25 for an ounce of silver. Now, that is theoretical. I'm offering an illustration. The amount, the value of gold or silver fluctuates constantly, and it may be significantly above that price for gold or significantly below. The same with silver. It could be ridiculously high compared to today's price. It could be very, very low. It really is something that you need to check for yourself on a website like Kitco, and I will put a link to their website down below as well. So premiums, the amount that you must pay over. For the example of the silver dollars that Costco has been selling, these have a silver value, let's say theoretically of $25, and Costco has been charging somewhere around $27, $28 per coin. So you can see that premium is somewhere around $3 per coin. Now, when you go to sell these items, you may or may not be able to recoup that premium because your buyer probably wants to buy these items for the least amount they possibly can. So if the price of silver is that theoretical $25 per ounce on the day that you go to sell, your buyer is probably going to want to buy these for $25 or even less. And the amount that you paid in premiums doesn't really impact their decisions. They don't really care how much over and above the value of the silver that you paid. They don't want to pay any more than they have to. And you'll find that exists for pretty much anything that you're buying and selling. So a premium, the amount that you have already probably paid if you were watching this video, over and above the value of the gold or silver. So let me run down a few options. And again, these are by no means exhaustive. There are many, many different venues where you can try to sell your items, but I'm going to talk about maybe 4 or 5 of the most popular. And I'm going to talk about some of the positives and some of the negatives when it comes time to sell. If you have made this decision, I want to arm you with that information to make it as productive and as safe as I possibly can. So the first way that you could sell these items is person to person, whether it is through an online source like Reddit or Craigslist or your local newspaper or Thrifty Nickel or buying and selling online venue. If you can find somebody locally, an individual locally who wants to buy what it is that you are selling, that is an interesting option. There are some pluses and minuses to that. The positives of a person-to-person sale, they offer you probably the highest potential price that you're going to be getting. This person doesn't need to buy anything lower than the value of the gold or silver, though again, they may try to get it for lower than the value of the day that you're buying or selling, because they don't have an inventory to keep up with. They don't have a physical location. They don't have staff they're trying to pay, or power bills, or water bills, or advertising. So theoretically, a person-to-person sale should net you the biggest return on what it is that you're selling. And it's also an immediate payment. If you are selling to somebody locally, you are ideally going to take that payment from that person the instant you decide to agree to a sale. So that payment will be instantaneous to you. Are there negatives? There are definitely negatives, and I can't stress these negatives enough. Remember, this is a very good time for you to be as cautious as you possibly can. If you're talking about gold in particular, the gold bars that you would have bought, the gold coins that you would have bought at Costco, are probably going to be 1 troy ounce. And again, troy ounce at our theoretical price of $2,000 an ounce means that you are talking about a fairly large amount of money, and money makes people do very dangerous things sometimes. So the negatives of a person-to-person sale: crime is very real. This is a lot of money, especially to people who are desperate. So you need to be extremely cautious if you agree to meet someone somewhere to sell large quantities of precious metals, whether it's silver rolls or rolls of silver eagles, or if it's 1 ounce gold bars or gold coins. This is a lot of money to a lot of people. Be very, very careful, because crime is real. Payment can be somewhat tricky if you're meeting somebody in person to make a transaction like this. There are online payment systems that work pretty well. Those include things like Zelle or Venmo. But it's important to understand the limitations of these online payment services, because some of them can be reversed in some situations. In other words, somebody may agree to pay you that $2,000 for your Pamp Swiss gold bar, and then after the transaction, through manipulating the Venmo system, they can have that money sucked out of your account and returned to them after they have already driven away with your gold bar. Be very careful about these types of payment methods that are reversible. Generally speaking, they are quite safe, but if there is any possibility that this individual may try to reverse this and get their money back, that can leave you without the money and without the gold. Another good option for meeting somebody person to person is to accept payment in cash. But again, we're talking about a large amount of cash, thousands of dollars potentially. And there are all sorts of bad scenarios with meeting somebody you've never met before with a large amount of precious metals or a large amount of cash. My advice is that cash is king. I do like cash in a transaction like this if you were going to meet somebody on a person-to-person basis. But my suggestions, and I'll try to give some suggestions for each one of these options as we explore them individually, is that if you are going to meet somebody in person, especially somebody that you've never met before, get a counterfeit pin. P-E-N. I mean like a writing implement. These counterfeit pens, and I'll show a picture of them here, are very inexpensive, and you can order these on Amazon with next day delivery if you are a Prime member, or a couple of days. If this is something you're going to be pursuing in the future, maybe go ahead and buy some of these now. You can have these for $5 or $8, and that's a pretty insignificant amount, and they should last for quite a while. And you use this pen to write a mark on each one of the notes that this person is paying you with. And generally speaking, and they can all be different and act in different ways, they leave a very dark mark or a very light mark, depending on whether or not that bill is counterfeit, because you're talking about a fairly large amount of cash. If you're talking about $2,000, remember that theoretical $2,000 price, you're talking about 20 $100 bills, or as many as $120 bills, and multiply that by how many different bars you have, and you can see that this is a large amount of cash. So one of these pens is inexpensive insurance to make sure that you're not taking counterfeit money from somebody, because the bad guys are out there, and they know that when they're meeting somebody, especially somebody who doesn't do transactions like this very often, slipping in a few or even mostly counterfeit bills will get them gold in return, and they haven't lost anything. So one of these counterfeit pens, an inexpensive piece of insurance. The other suggestions that I have is that there are places where you can transact business like this that are at least a little bit safer. Some people suggest doing it at a public library, but if you Google safe trade spots in your location, you can often find that some of the police departments in your area offer a lobby or a room or somewhere where they have staff on hand to make sure that a situation like this, a buy or a sell, does not go south. And I would be a lot more comfortable if I knew that I had a legitimately purchased gold bar or roll of silver eagles that I was selling to an individual who had legitimate money to pay me, and it could all happen in a police station where the good guys are right there in case you need them. And it will also probably help weed out anybody who has nefarious intentions. If you say that you will only transact something like this in a safe trade spot, ideally a police station, they may run and not want to make the sale in the first place, and that's good for you. You would rather not deal with somebody who is afraid of transacting business like this outside of a place where it was much safer for you. Also, and a final word about this, if you're meeting somebody in person, always be very careful about getting into your car and driving away. You don't want somebody to follow you, somebody with bad intentions. So be careful, use due diligence, use caution. If you're meeting somebody in person, the positives, it's probably the best rate of return that you can get. It's something that's local. It's something that you get paid instantaneously. But there are negatives, and that includes safety, cautious. Try this at a safe place to trade, at one of those safe trade spots. Remember a counterfeit pen, and if somebody acts strange, if they suddenly don't want you to use a counterfeit pen, guess what? That's another good indication that maybe this isn't the person that you want to do business with. So the first option is a person-to-person sale. And as a small addendum to that, there are online places where you can make sales person-to-person also. And I'm thinking about a place like Reddit. Those sales can be a little bit more complicated, and I don't really recommend a sale like that for somebody who's brand new to precious metals. Some of the benefits are that you can actually ship your product to a neutral third party, and your buyer can ship the money to that neutral third party. And then that buyer or that neutral third party will submit the cash or the gold or the silver across to the right person who is buying and the right person who's selling. It's an interesting idea. I haven't done it myself very often, but if it makes you more comfortable, it's maybe something to at least look into. The second option, if you are trying to sell, and I think that this is probably a pretty good option. In fact, I mentioned that maybe you should visit these shops in the Costco Gold and the Costco Silver videos in the first place, and that is your local coin shop. Your local coin shop probably, not always, but probably will buy your gold or your silver from you. The positives of working with a local shop, well, they're local. And you may even know the owner of that person, or you may know somebody who has bought and sold from that individual in the past. That local shop owner is part of your community, and that can have different benefits over and above what we're talking about in terms of keeping money within your community and keeping your community alive and thriving. So positives, they are local. They also do have immediate payment. Now, some places will insist on paying you with a check if it's a large amount of precious metals. Some of them not so much. Some of them will pay you however you want to get paid. So payment instantaneous also. It is, generally speaking, a safe place to buy and sell. If this is an established coin shop that buys gold and silver, they've probably been doing this for quite a while. So this is probably a safe space for you to be transacting this type of business. No shop owner is going to want to have a shop in a dangerous location, and they're going to make sure that it's a well-lit and easy to see transaction. I think that's a definite benefit. A safe place to buy and sell. They should offer competitive prices. We talked before about those premiums and the fact that anybody who's buying from you is going to try to get these items for the least amount that they possibly can. In my experience, a good coin shop that is run by a reputable person with a good reputation will offer you a pretty competitive amount for your gold or silver. Now again, it doesn't really matter what you paid for your precious metals. It doesn't matter how much you paid for your item at Costco. None of these folks are going to offer what you paid for that item unless the value of gold or silver has gone up significantly since you bought. But especially if the price has gone down since you have bought. And remember, that is always a possibility. The price of gold and silver fluctuates constantly. So if you bought at our theoretical $2,000 price, it could be that gold has dropped down to $1,500 an ounce, and nobody is going to pay you that $2,000 price when the value of gold has dropped on the world market. Please keep that in mind. A local shop, local, immediate payment, a safe place to buy and sell, competitive prices, generally speaking, and they may also allow something that none of these other options really have, and that is the ability to trade your item. If you bought a 1-ounce gold coin for $2,000 somewhere in that region, or a gold pamp bar, or a rand bar, that's a lot of money to have put into a very small amount of gold. And maybe you don't need to access all $2,000 worth. Remember, that price can drop and rise. So maybe you'll have the option at a local shop of trading them, the shop owner, for half of your gold, getting that back in the form of a smaller gold bar or smaller gold coins. If you don't need to sell that entire $2,000 position, say you only need $1,000, then maybe you can take $1,000 in cash and take a few smaller gold coins home with you. That's a way to keep your investment in gold without having to exit that entire position. And very few other places will allow you to do that. Can't make any guarantees that your local shop is going to do that, but at least it's a possibility if that's something that you feel is the right move for you. So, local immediate payment, a safe place, competitive prices, and the potential for trades if that's something you want to do. Are there negatives in dealing with your local shop? There are. Often these local dealers need to keep their lights on. They need to make a profit. They need to pay their employees. They need to cover themselves if they have been buying when the price is high and selling when the price is low. So they may offer to buy your items at a discount. So theoretically, at our $2,000 price, you may walk into the shop and your coin dealer may offer you $1,750 or $1,800 or $1,900. They have to make a profit also. So you can't expect them to buy from you exactly at what the market is. Now, if the market has gone up since you bought, then maybe that's not a big problem because you'll recoup more of the money than you put into it. But just keep that in mind. They're a business. They need to operate on a profit, otherwise they will go out of business. So you have to expect that they're probably going to pay you less than the value of gold or silver as it is trading on the market the day that you go to sell. Also, and this is something that I think is a really good suggestion, is that this dealer might not be interested in your product. There's nothing that says that they have to make you an offer or they have to make you a realistic offer. So if that's the case, call around. If you are in a location where there may be a few coin shops that buy and sell gold and silver also, it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone and call them. They're used to that and they expect that. And if you know what you have specifically, and another good point, make sure you understand what it is you have. I have a 1 ounce gold Pamp Swiss bar in its original assay card. Then they can offer you a pretty specific amount that they will pay for it. You can't just call them up and say, I have a 1 ounce gold bar. How much do you want for, how much would you pay me for that? Know what it is that you have to sell. If you've got a Rand bar in the original assay card that you bought from Costco and it's a 1 troy ounce bar, as much information as you can provide to them, they will be able to give you a more accurate amount that they will pay for it if they are interested in buying. And if they're not, pick up the phone and call a couple other dealers that are locally. You might have to drive a few miles outside of town or a few miles within town. If you've got the opportunity to sell and you have different buyers in the area, all it takes is a phone call and you may save yourself $100, $200 or more. So good advice also. Know what you have, be able to describe it to them on the phone. They're not going to make an offer if they don't know exactly what it is that you're selling. But if you can give them as much information as you can get a good estimate from them of what they will pay for it and call around. Maybe somebody is really interesting. Maybe somebody needs a lot of gold right now and they'll pay you a premium for that gold bar. Make a few phone calls. It won't hurt you and it will be good for you in the end. So local shops, positives and negatives. Local, immediate, safe place to sell, competitive prices. They may allow trades. Negatives, they might try to discount it, buy it from a discount from you. And they also might not be interested, but you can counter that by making a few phone calls. There are also places like eBay where you can try to sell something like this. I've been selling on eBay for decades and I like that venue, but there are some limitations to it as well, especially if you've never bought or sold on a place like eBay before. Online sales. Some of the positives. Payment is often processed by a third party. In other words, the person that's buying it will have to pay you through something like Cash App or one of the other online bill payment methods. And that means that you're not receiving the money directly from the person that's buying it. There is a middleman like PayPal that will operate in a capacity of taking the money from the buyer and giving it to you as the seller. That was a little bit more safe way of doing it. They are also usually a great place to sell in terms of competition because when you're selling something online, you literally have the entire world who is interested in buying your product. So if somebody locally isn't that interested in buying from you, a venue like eBay will offer you an entire globe's worth of potential buyers, and that should up that price quite a bit. Negatives. Online sales can take time. You also have to have an account established, and you have to, usually speaking, be pretty good at writing the copy for your auction, and you have to be able to take pretty good images of your item as well. It can take a fair amount of time. The time that it takes to sell something for a premium, if that's really what you're after, trying to get as much money as you can take days or weeks or maybe even months, and maybe you don't have that time, so keep that in mind. Auction fees can be considerable, and a place like eBay charges higher amounts for bullion than they seem to for a lot of other categories, whether it's gold or silver, so keep that in mind as well. Those auction fees and the fees associated with a payment system like PayPal can be considerable. Keep those in mind as well. And finally, and it doesn't seem to happen as much as it used to, but your buyer can always claim that they didn't receive the item that they bought from you, or that the item was not as described, or the item was counterfeit. And that can be really disconcerting. So keep that in mind. It doesn't seem to happen as much as it used to, but that possibility is still out there. You could sell something that you know is a solid gold bar or a roll of eagles, and that person who bought it from you may say that they never got it, or that it wasn't the same thing that you promised them. And even if it was, they may have a case against you in the eyes of the online venue like eBay. Something to keep in mind. My suggestions, if you're going to be using a site like that, you should probably have some experience with it first. If you're going to be shipping this item to a person, you must ship this in a higher degree of mail than you're probably used to. I'm a strong believer in the priority mail small boxes that the post office offers. They have unlimited weight capacity and they cost about $10. And the nice thing is that this is a nice rigid box, and I'll show a picture of it here, that the post office has. You pay the $10 to have this shipped, but you should also make sure that you are buying insurance when you're sending something like this through the mail. And the post office has different ways that they interact with bullion. Sometimes they will allow you to insure bullion, sometimes they won't. Numismatic items can be different also. Make sure, ask your local clerk if it's okay for you to ship bullion and if you can purchase insurance. And these small boxes allow for insurance up to $5,000. That insurance will cover you if they allow insurance on bullion items. Like I said, a big believer in these small boxes. They are an affordable, rigid way to ship something, and you can also track it and ask for a signature confirmation when it gets there. All of these little bits give you a little bit more safety and security if for some reason that person claimed that they never got the right item that you sold to them. So online sales like eBay. And while we're talking about the potential of an online sale, there are online bullion retailers. These are organizations that have been online for quite a while now who specialize in selling precious metals. But unlike Costco, they will also buy your precious metals. And the way that it usually works is you have to call them, you have to tell them exactly what it is that you have. I have a 1 ounce Pump Swiss bar, gold bar, in the original assay card. And they will make an offer on that item or items. And then they will give you a certain window where you have to ship that item to them and they have to receive it, usually 48 or 72 hours, something like that. Once they've received it, they'll log it into their system and they will pay you whatever the amount is that you agreed on the day that you called. So whether the price has gone up in value or if the price has gone down in value, they will still honor that quote that they gave you before. And then they'll either pay you electronically or they'll pay you via check or however it is that you have decided you wanted to take payment. This is a really good option if you don't have a lot of local facilities that will potentially buy your item from you. And I've dealt with several of these. I've dealt with AppMex before, and it's been several years, but I've dealt with a company called Gainesville Coins before. Another popular one is JM Bullion, and I'll put links down to all of those organizations down below. I can't speak for JM. I've never bought or sold with them, but I have seen them referenced many, many times online, and I do believe they're probably a pretty reputable company as well. So another option, online sale. It's going to take a few days probably for you to get your item to them. It might take a few days for them to process and get the payment to you. So it's not that instantaneous purchase that you might get in a local facility. But if you don't have a lot of local options, this is at least one you can consider. Another option are pawn shops. Now, pawn shops are notorious for having a reputation of not paying very much for things. So this one is maybe not the best choice, but again, your local pawn shop may be one of the more reputable places that really needs these products and are willing to pay a premium for them. Remember, they're trying to sell and make money also, and if they need this merchandise, then maybe this is a good option for you. It doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to make a phone call. The interesting thing about pawn shops, if you've never used one before, and I'm not an expert in pawn shops, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but the positives, they are local. They also have to abide by certain regulations that a lot of other businesses don't. And they offer instant payment, generally speaking in cash. They will pay you $100 bills, and you can probably trust that pawn shop to pay you good quality money. But they also allow you to pawn an item. And I don't want to get too deep into the specifics of pawning, but pawning is the action of them lending you money on your gold or your silver. Not every pawn shop operates the same way, but you have those two options. You can actually sell it, your gold or silver, to the pawn shop, or they can lend you money based on your item. For the example of that $2,000 gold bar, pawn shops will generally lend somewhere between 25 and 50% of the value of that item. So they may lend you up to maybe $1,000 on that gold bar. You have 30 days to pay that money back plus interest, and that interest can be significant. But if the price of gold skyrockets while you've got that item pawned, you can go back, get your item, pay the interest. You've had your money to use for that 30-day or 60-day period of time, it depends on the shop, and you get your very own gold bar back. So pawning is an interesting idea. It's not for everyone. It may not be the best option for you, but at least it's a possibility. You can sell to a pawn shop. You can pawn at a pawn shop. Interesting opportunities there. The negatives. Pawn shops, in my experience, are not particularly aggressive when it comes to buying. Their prices are not all that competitive. And you have to ask yourself, is somebody walking into the pawn shop looking for a gold bar or looking for a roll of silver eagles? It may take them quite a while to sell that item, whether they've bought it for you, from you, or you have let your pawn period of time expire and they get to keep that item. So it may take them a while to sell it, and because of that, they may not offer you the best prices. In my experience, that seems to be true. So it doesn't hurt to make a phone call. It doesn't hurt to ask, especially if you already know the specifics on the item that you're talking about pawning or selling. But they do offer you at least some flexibility. They're local, they're regulated, the payments are instant. You can often pawn the item, that is to borrow money against it, or you can sell it outright. So pawn shops, another at least possibility that you can use when it comes time for you to buy or to sell the items that you bought at Costco. And the last one I'm going to talk about, and again, this is by no means exhaustive. There are lots of other options out there. These are the ones that I feel are probably the most prominent, are these standalone businesses that go by cash into gold. They have different names depending on where you are, depending on who owns the company. They are generally shops that are set up in strip malls that will take your gold jewelry, that will take your gold coins. They will pay you for them instantaneously, and that's all their shop does. They don't sell often. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. They are just interested in buying as much of this product as they possibly can. The downfall, the positives, I suppose, first is that the payment can be instant and it is local. You don't have to deal with an individual person, and they're going to pay you cash probably on the spot for your items. But the negatives is that they are, generally speaking, not competitive at all. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these places on your theoretical $2,000 gold bar would offer you $1,000 for it, or maybe $1,500 for it. They are in business strictly to make as much money as quickly as possible, and they are often buying things from people who are desperate to sell, and those types of folks don't really care how much they get for their items. So because of that, I would strongly caution, try to explore these other options first before you go to a place that is specifically just designed to buy your gold, because in my experience, they will offer you the least of all of these different options. It's not to say that it's something you should completely exclude, especially if you are in a crisis situation where you must access these funds and you don't have the time or the energy to pursue some of these other options. But in my experience, this should really be one of the last options that you explore. Now, that said, there are other locations that do buy gold and silver who are not the same type of operation as these little standalone shops that just buy. Your local jewelry store may also buy gold, and if you know your local jeweler, this is a good option to explore as well. Your local coin shop probably buys and sells gold also, gold and silver, so it's not really the same as these cash into gold locations. This is a very specific type of business. That's the one that I think you should probably use the most caution around. And even your local pawn shop may have a sign on the wall or their door that says, "We buy gold jewelry." Don't be so much afraid of any of these regular outlets, the coin shop, the pawn shop, the jewelry store. It's these little standalone businesses that I think you need to use the most caution around. Some final thoughts, now that we've explored several different options that you could use when it comes time to sell. Please remember, this is my experience. I'm not trying to offer you specific advice. I'm simply trying to share with you some options that you can use if you've come to the conclusion that this is time for you to sell. Know what you have. Acquaint yourself with your gold bars or your silver coins. The number of silver coins that you have in the roll, the year that they are, the type of manufacturer of your gold bar, how much it weighs, because Costco has offered some gold bars in the gram field. I believe that they're offering 50 and 100 gram bars as well. So know that your gold bar is a troy ounce, know that it's 100 gram, know that your roll of silver eagles is a 20, 23, or a 24 date. Know that there are 20 rolls in the coins in the roll. Know what it is that you have so somebody can't pull something over on you. Don't remove gold bars from the assay cards. So these are the assay cards, and we've talked about these in the other Costco videos. These are rigid plastic holders. This is an example of a PAMP. This is a 1 gram bar, considerably smaller than those 1 ounce bars. But your gold should probably remain in those assay cards. Don't remove them first. It's up to you when it comes time to sell. If your buyer says that they must remove them before they can make an offer, think carefully about that, because you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Once it's out, it's out. So my recommendation, don't remove your gold from the assay cards until after you've made the sale, and then that person can decide to do with them what they will. Take very good images of your items, whether it's the gold bars, the gold coins, or the silver coins. Make sure that you've got a good photographic record. Keep those receipts that you paid for these items, whether it's at Costco or some other venue. Record the serial numbers. So when you're talking about an assay card, it should have numbers on them and on the bar as well. Record those numbers, write them down, make a computer file, put them on a notepad. Make sure you've got those. That's a great way to prove ownership if something goes south. You've got a record of what it is that you had, and also the identifying characteristics of that item as well. Be aware of your surroundings, especially if you're doing one of these person-to-person sales. Bad guys are out there, and bad guys recognize how liquid things like gold and silver are. Be incredibly cautious. Really take advantage of those safe trade spots if you possibly can, if this is one of the venues that you're going to consider. And finally, remember the tax implications. I am not about to offer you any kind of tax advice because I don't have any experience in that field. Consult with your tax accountant or your tax attorney. Make sure that what you're doing is legit in their eyes, that the IRS is not going to come knocking down the road and wonder where their tax payment is. Generally speaking, if you are selling something for a profit, you probably, possibly, maybe owe taxes on it. On the other side of that coin, if you're selling something for a loss, there is at least the possibility that you can write off some of that loss. Again, I don't know these things. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a financial professional. Seek professional guidance if these are issues that you are concerned with. Know those tax implications when you're buying or selling. So what do you think? You've bought your gold, you've bought your silver from Costco or maybe some other venue, and these are some options you can keep tucked in the back of your mind if and when you have decided on your journey that it's time for you to sell. Person-to-person sales, coin shops, online sales, pawn shops, cash into gold stores, even places like jewelry stores if your local jewelry store has this possibility. But keep all those considerations in mind. There are tax implications, there are safety implications, and each one of these opportunities are going to try to get your gold or silver for the least amount they possibly can. So it's up to you to do a little bit of the legwork, to call around, make those phone calls, see who it is that's going to offer you the best price, and that will be the best way to take care of yourself. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, once again, I'd like to ask that you do be part of this community. Lots of different different videos on items like these that we already have in our back catalog and that we will be producing in the future. If you have any specific questions about any of the things that we talked about here today, if you have another option, if you're a more experienced seller and you want to drop a note down below to remind me of another way that people maybe newer to precious metals can exit their position when they feel the time is right, by all means, leave another note down below and we'll try to pin it if it's advice that I think is useful to everybody else out there. And as always, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as you go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.